We got confirmation of the $5 billion Blue Owl Capital deal that we've been waiting for SoFi to announce for several months now, ever since management teased it at the Q4 earnings call. We also got some news around crypto, and I want to share some thoughts on the impact to revenue and the specific numbers that we could potentially be forecasting out as a result of these new developments. Let's jump right in. Okay, so in my last video, I talked about the OCC approval, which came last week, and how that can essentially be setting SoFi up to reintroduce crypto. Now, of course, there's limitations there. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is a fully done deal, but there is optimism from SoFi management because this week we saw two new cryptic tweets from Anthony Noto, which I briefly mentioned on the live streams this week, but I'll bring them up here as well. Anthony Noto posted both of these tweets shortly after the OCC decision, which leads me to associate them together. He can't really come out and say this is a done deal and we're actually going to be announcing something very shortly. So the cryptic tweets is really all he has in his arsenal. It's the best we can really hope for at this time. So on March 8th, he posted, "It's a whole new day." This was, I believe, one day after the OCC news, which I mean, it's pretty clear to extrapolate outwards to say that he's referring to it being a new regulatory landscape, which we find ourselves in with regards to crypto. I'd be surprised if it was anything other than that, quite frankly. And I think many people came to that same association just looking at how popular that tweet was. And 2 days later, he posted "Fresh Horses We Ride," which, if you do a simple Google search, you'll realize is a very, very common Anthony Noto expression that he's used many times over. And overall, it sounds as though the excitement from management is high around this potential development with regards to crypto. So there's really two things that I want to talk about in this video. The first is, of course, crypto in general, but the second, more importantly, is the context that it provides in this Blue Owl deal that was confirmed on Friday. And the reason I want to pair them together is because I think we can extrapolate using a case study with the loan platform business to predict out some next steps with regards to the crypto segment, and also talking about the next steps around loan platform business in general, and talking about some numbers we can predict out relative to where SoFi is trading for right now. Now, the first thing I will say with regards to crypto is my prediction is that crypto is going to return to SoFi within the next 3 to 4 months, basically saying within the first half of 2025. I think that timeline provides enough of a buffer from a regulatory perspective to clear out all the outstanding questions and remaining restrictions that may be in place. And it's not a stretch to believe that SoFi's internal management teams is in touch with regulators around how this recent decision affects them from a business perspective. And so you essentially need to clear out that outstanding question first and foremost. And then the second piece here is, operationally speaking, providing a timeline to work backwards from around when everything can come online from a technology perspective, as well as a business and marketing perspective. So they have to have all their ducks in a row from a regulatory hurdle and also from an internal business perspective as well. And I think that with the speed that we're seeing regulators move, 3 to 4 months is pretty much a realistic timeline that we can expect this to return. I know management has said they want to move as fast as possible on this. And to have this within the next 3 to 4 months is realistic in my mind, but it's also an aggressive timeline because if we rewinded the clock back into January 1st before the new administration had taken place, and if we were to ask other folks on the SoFi Weekly podcast or other SoFi content creators in general, their timeline for crypto returning, first of all, was a big if, whether it would or wouldn't in the first place. But even the ones that agreed that it would return had varying timelines that ranged from first quarter to next year, basically. And so I think everybody is pleasantly surprised by how quickly regulators are moving, considering the new administration only stepped into power at the end of January. Now, the next extrapolation outwards, if we agree that crypto is going to return to SoFi in the first half of 2025, is that we can say crypto is going to have a positive financial impact on SoFi's financials in 2025. And this is a big tailwind because if you think about the guidance that SoFi provided for the full year 2025, none of this would have been accounted for in the guidance numbers at all because there's a massive question mark with regards to regulators, whether they would act quickly or whether they would delay that decision further into the new administration's term. And so I do think it has the potential to make a dent in the financials this year if, in fact, it does return within the next 3 months and we're actually seeing new customers on SoFi's crypto segment, new members ramping up there as well. I think that we'll see that reflected in the financials towards the back half of the year. And that would be in addition to the guidance numbers that they provided. And yes, I can already imagine people commenting on this video saying, well, actually, the first time crypto was introduced didn't actually make a big dent from a financial perspective in SoFi's Invest segment because it was a very minor product offering that didn't really move the needle very much. But I think this time has the potential to be different. And the reason why is because the context around where the market is and the strategic initiatives that SoFi has pursued over the last 5 years is very different to when the last time crypto was available on their platform. Management has guided more conservatively on the bottom line this year because they want to reinvest back into the growth of the business throughout the year. We're seeing this through increased acquisition channels, through increased sales and marketing, and other initiatives that will lead to them having stronger levels of member growth in general this year. And it might even lead to SoFi making an acquisition in the crypto space this year. I had this as a dark horse prediction pick when we were talking about SoFi acquisitions and where our mind first goes. But it might also make sense given management's commentary around them wanting to go even deeper into the crypto space should regulation permit, in addition to just the broker side of the business. I think there's a lot more that they can be doing with regards to the market share that they have in the crypto space and how they can capture more of that total addressable market. And I think if you pair management's ambitions with regards to crypto and the desire to move deeper into crypto, along with the regulatory hurdles now being overcome, along with the fact that management is now reinvesting back into the growth of their business, it's very feasible to extrapolate outwards to say that crypto is going to come back bigger and stronger than ever, far in excess of just being a broker option on SoFi Invest, but even something around the reintroduction of that business segment, but even something like an acquisition to allow them to do much more in the crypto space. And the reason I started talking with crypto, even though I made a video about it last week, was because I wanted to use this as a case study as to how SoFi expands their foothold slowly and methodically through these new markets, because this is exactly what we've been seeing with the loan platform business. Now, I will preface that all we've got from management was just a couple of sentences around their desire to expand into the crypto ecosystem. We haven't had a tangible plan yet, but we've also never had real regulatory hurdles removed yet. And so I think all of that comes in due time. And we know that SoFi, by and large, prioritizes initiatives that they think will move the needle the most across their entire ecosystem. And it may very well be the case that crypto is just not a big needle mover because it historically has not been. It historically has been a minor part of SoFi Invest. But I think it does have the potential to be a needle mover if they approach it in the strategic lens that they were highlighting in their commentary on the Q4 earnings. Because I'm taking cues right now from the loan platform business. And what I'm seeing there is SoFi slowly and methodically expanding their foothold into that market. There was a time when SoFi did not have the loan platform business, and they built up their internal reputation by originating their own loans, and they built up their expertise by doing the repetitions. And eventually, it led to the loan platform business. And now we're getting bigger and bigger deals through the loan platform business. We had Fortress, and now we have Blue Owl, to the point where now we have the potential to earn multiple hundreds of millions of dollars per year off of the loan platform business. I mean, I know several people have broken this down from a take rate perspective. Here's just one post that Chris made the other day around the take rate on the Blue Owl deal, going off of Q3 and Q4 take rates and just extrapolating outward to say that if the same take rate applies, this deal could be upwards of $290 million for SoFi. But even if we have a lower take rate and other factors come into play and we just round it off to 200 million, I think Chris makes a good point in his post saying that this doesn't really even account for student loans or home loans yet, which we'll know are going to be ramping up in a lower interest rate environment. They're only doing personal loans here with the loan platform business. So there's a lot of room for expansion further into the loan platform business. And then you can add another layer onto this, which is the securitization aspect of their business, which they just mentioned a couple of weeks ago. There's many partners that SoFi can not only originate on behalf of, but also securitize those deals further to further expand the money they're ultimately bringing in through the loan platform business. And so in my mind, I see the loan platform business as a methodical expansion outwards, to the point where management even teased in their Q4 earnings remarks saying that they can do all of their originations on behalf of the loan platform business, and that could revolutionize their entire business of how they make money. It can totally flip their business model on their head, because right now the loan platform business is increasing more and more and more in this personal loan segment, and they have home loans and student loans as untapped segments to originate on behalf of. And then you have another layer of vertical integration, essentially, where you have the securitizations of these loans. And so there's a lot more money that they can be making off the loan platform business as a whole. And so you just extrapolate this way of thinking in terms of capturing the biggest amount of market share and doing it in the most sustainable way possible. And you apply it to something like crypto, which is coming back. In crypto, historically, you've had a very small portion, which is the brokerage aspect of crypto. But then you can do similar extrapolations that we're doing for the loan platform business onto crypto. And you can say, okay, brokerage is one aspect, crypto-backed securities, crypto-backed assets in general, so on and so forth, the custodial aspect of crypto, and build from there. And ultimately, I think this is where the positive sentiment from Noto comes in place, is the fact that when you put all of these pieces together, they do make a material impact, or they have the potential to make a material impact in SoFi. the company has guided very conservatively for the bottom line. But with the securitizations on the LPB and the new originations on behalf of these big third parties, such as the Blue Owl deal, and different types of loans that they can then go out and originate on behalf of third parties, I think it's very easy to see the upside from a bottom line perspective. And I think this is very important to understand in the context of where the stock has been trading right now in terms of valuation, right? Is this a risky pick or is this a deal in the grand scheme of things? Because SoFi has shown that earnings were terrific. And since earnings came out, management has shown that they've executed against their commitments, against their promises that they made in earnings. The discrepancy here has really been between the expectation that the market had and the fact that management is now going back into growth mode and reinvesting a lot and not letting it trickle down to the bottom line. Whereas in the past couple of years, they were optimizing for profitability. And then the other fact to consider is that there's been a drawdown in the stock, but that's largely been as a result of tariffs, which don't directly affect SoFi. I mean, yes, there is an increased risk of recession if the jobless numbers go out of control, and that does have a potential to hinder SoFi's plans. But by and large, the first order effects are tariff related, and SoFi doesn't have direct exposure to tariffs. So it's been kind of unfairly taken down, especially in the grand scheme of things. I mean, the Blue Owl deal alone should have bumped the stock up double digits. The Fortress announcement, I think, bumped it up like 12% on that day that it was announced. And then on the Blue Owl deal, I think it was like down because the macro was down that day. So you will get to a point where there's a massive discrepancy between the fundamentals and what the stock is actually trading for. And yes, SoFi has had that discrepancy. It's had that gap for years, but I think that gap is now expanding more and more. And in the $11 and $12 territory, with these deals coming in and also with the potential for further expansion to the loan platform business as well as the crypto segment, you just have that gap of value expanding. And I think there's definitely an opportunity there to capitalize. So we'll have to stay tuned in terms of what SoFi management does with regards to crypto. If they do actually come out and announce it within the next 3 months or so after regulatory hurdles have been cleared, which I'm sure they're validating that right now. And we have to see what they do with the loan platform business expansion. If they're going to originate student loans on behalf of third parties, if they're going to securitize more of these deals, and overall, what can we expect to trickle down to the bottom line? But if you just take their methodical approach, their strategy of landing and expanding in an industry, starting very small and then expanding vertically integrating and also horizontally expanding across different offerings and capturing more market share as they're doing that, then you can come to the conclusions that I am by taking the loan platform business as a case study and then extrapolating that outward for crypto and saying, okay, well, actually, they're not going to come back just as a brokerage because now regulatory tailwinds are at their back. They're going to come back in so many different ways and capture as much market share as they can on that crypto segment. It'll remain to be seen, but the way that they're expanding the loan platform business, I think, is a masterclass, and it's going to lead to a lot of money trickling down to the bottom line. And I think at $11, very little of that is actually priced into the stock right now. And so I'm a buyer at these prices. I just added heavily to my position this week. So we'll see where that goes. But time will tell what happens next. I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching and let me know your thoughts in the comments below.